croeso unwaith eto I Marvel Moiders. My name, as always, is Dom. Moiders is, as always, a Welsh word meaning to go on and on about something, and as always, I'm going on and on about Marvel TV and movie projects. And the TV and movie project that I'm going on about this time is Spider-Man 3, 2007's final entry in Sam Raimi's Spyder trilogy. Not a very highly regarded film across the board, but I think is enjoying something of a renaissance or something of a reappraisal where people realise all the good work that he's actually been doing. Sam Raimi's struggles with the film involved him having to introduce a lot more characters than he was originally planning. And I'm wondering how the struggle of this studio interference is reflected in the narrative of the film. I think in terms of the pacing, at the beginning, you really get this sense of things being forced in, character after character being introduced without much chance to breathe. Maybe this is where Sam Raimi considered it to be a bad film, but maybe it's his experience that was bad. Forgiveness is a big theme in this movie, but can we forgive Spider-Man 3? Three united and it feels so good. The threesome of Peter, MJ and Harry, rather like the foursome of Sandy, Tripitaka, Monkey and Pigsy, is the heart of the trilogy. And this film, maybe more than the other two, gives all three of the characters these parallel trajectories, not just being about Peter and MJ and Harry being kind of offshoots of him. The beginning of the film, things are going swimmingly for Peter Parker. The city of New York loves him. The city of New York always loves him, really, but he's feeling the love. He also feels the love of his life, who he's planning to marry, and seems to be having a successful Broadway career. He's established at the Daily Bugle. He's still living in his shabby bedsit, but nothing is made now of the money worries like he had at the beginning of Spider-Man 2. The only reference is when he goes to a jeweller's window to look for an engagement ring, there's a reference to layaway payments. But even this is saying, hey, you got no money? Doesn't matter. This is going to hold you back in life. Big change to Spider-Man, the beginning of Spider-Man 2. In short, all is good. But it's MJ that's having the problems now. And it's Peter's reaction to her problems that's going to create the problems that drive this movie forward. DISASTERFORPETER. That spells disaster for Peter. MJ opens the film starring in a show on Broadway, but that's quickly ripped away from her after just one performance, which seems harsh. Surely they had rehearsals, they had run-throughs. How is it they kind of chicken out so quickly after deciding to go with her? That's bad.
That was so poorly handled.
She wants to talk to Peter about this disappointment, but he can't hear it. He's invested in the idea of her being a success. He doesn't understand. He offers these kind of trite bits of positivity and then relates it to his own experience as Spider-Man. MJ tries to make it clear that he's not listening, but it's not about him.
This isn't about you. This is about me.
Then, the day that he's planning to ask MJ to marry him, he's thrown a parade for Spider-Man, which triggers more of kind of MJ's feelings of this is all about him, I can't really hack this. And Pete decides, with the insistence of the crowd, to kiss Gwen. The exact same upside-down kiss that he shared with MJ in the first film, an MTV Popcorn Award-winning kiss. Not surprisingly, MJ is quite angry that he doesn't understand how that kiss hurt her, how he isn't really listening to what she's saying at all, and she leaves this fancy French restaurant that Peter set up before he can even propose. Instead, she confides in Harry, just like she used to confide in Peter about her unhappiness with Osborn Jr., and she and Harry end up kissing. Oops. Harry maybe goes through the most dramatic character arc of the three of them. Almost, it's like soap opera levels of kind of drama for him. of melodrama. He goes from being a vengeful Goblin Jr. who gets souped up incredibly quickly in terms of the film as Goblin. They make almost nothing of the fact that he's transformed into Goblin. He goes from vengeful Goblin Jr. to kind of loved up amnesiac best friend, which is dropped right out of some kind of telenovela. And then he's triggered back into an even more violent and diabolical Goblin. Luckily, though, or maybe unluckily, seeing as how his story ends up, he has Bernard, who is his own version of Aunt May, to set him straight. And he's not called Bernard, thankfully. They know how to pronounce it, Bernard. Eventually, Harry forgives Peter for what's happened with his father, and he sacrifices himself to save Spidey's life in a way that mirrors the death of his own father, almost as if Harry's there to redeem the sins of Norman and kind of fulfill his destiny as his son that way, rather than taking bloody revenge.
I'll give my life for them.
Yes, Harry. Yes, you will. This Goblin Jr., though, was a bit of a frustrating watch, partly because the costume was so nondescript, you couldn't really see him in the dark a lot of the time. He was kind of squashed a bit too much at the beginning. But having said all that, there was a Spider-Man 4 that was planned, but it's hard to see how that would have fared without Harry, I think. Without him being his presence, I think the film would have suffered.
Strawberries. Peter
and MJ do make up just about by the end, but it's not a triumphant crescendo. At the end of Spider-Man 2, it's MJ that has this kind of strange ambivalent look on her face as Spider-Man shoots off on his webs into the street. By the end of the trilogy, and by the end of the Maguire story of Spider-Man, really, it's his face that's difficult to read. He's obviously sad at the death of his friend, certainly, but there's another grimness in there. The trilogy is almost like a reverse Star Wars, with triumph and hope at the end of the second film, but the other two ending with funerals and Peter looking kind of stern. Topher Grace doesn't really work for me. I mean, he's freelance. He doesn't really work for anyone. But anyway, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people, including Sam Raimi. Avi Arad told Sam to include Venom in the movie because Avi was a toys guy and kids loved Venom and kids loved toys. So he wanted all that getting sold. That was the whole Marvel deal at the beginning of these films. It was just a way to sell toys. The Venom that we got, maybe because of this Raimi reluctance, was not the muscle-bound version of Eddie Brock that most people expected. In the comics, Venom represents more of a physical threat to Spider-Man because he's like a bigger version of the same thing. And it represents this threat of unmasking Spidey to the world because he knows about it. The threat in Spider-Man 3, I think, is a more shadowy one, a more subtle one. Shadowy literally in a Jungian sense, in that Peter wraps himself in these dark qualities with the black suit on that he can't recognise in himself. He doesn't recognise his anger. He doesn't recognise his need to impress others. Eddie, kind of before the suit, doppelgangs about. He's stalking a girl who doesn't feel the same way about him, like Peter stalked MJ in the first film. He cheats to get a break at the Bugle, to get a job, just like Peter does with his stage shots of himself as Spider-Man. Eddie is already a threat, maybe more of a threat to Peter before he takes on the discarded symbiote. Wearing the dark suit for Peter seems to temporarily solve his issues, just like being Spider-Man No More seemed to solve his issues in Spider-Man 2, but it's not real. It doesn't really work. Peter recognises that the symbiote is more of a direct threat to him than as Venom. He recognises how he indulges in those darker feelings wearing that suit that he denies as Peter. He's cocky and arrogant, we get that, but he's cruel. He's cruel to Harry. He's cruel to MJ.
Look at little Goblin Jr. Gonna cry?
He quite coldly sets out to kill Sandman and Goblin and believes he has, even though he doesn't succeed. The symbiote arrives when Peter and MJ are lying back on this web staring up at the sky in the park. The happiest before things start to go wrong. For all three of them, he arrives like this worm in paradise. But Peter's able to recognise that threat and he eventually escapes that threat. But Eddie cannot let go of the suit, cannot let go of the shadow, and that is the death of him. I keep trying to work out what the Sandman represents. There's something about the character that I've identified with since I first read Spider-Man comics in the late 70s, but I can't really figure out what it is. I've never been turned into sand myself. In the terms of the films, the mask and the split personality of Goblin and Doc Ock, respectively, in the first two films, help them understand what those films are about, but I'm not sure what Sandman's abilities represent, the kind of dissolving away into molecules of sand, what the shape-shifting tells me about the film. My feeling is it's something about being working class, something about being considered disposable or worthless. Maybe it's about kind of an existential crisis about the impermanence of being. Flint says at the end of the film, before he's forgiven by Peter and kind of melts away into the sunrise,
the only thing left to me now is my daughter.
It's a little bit like what Harry says in the second film, and he feels all that's left of him is his wanting to get revenge for his father. There's something about Flint that feels similar to the Thing as well. It's kind of gruff, working class, and maybe the sand and the rock, they're kind of related. He is defeated by water, which kind of suggests that symbolically emotions would be his undoing, water kind of representing emotions. But I don't really get what any of these things say about Spider-Man as a character or the film. I am almost certain that I will have some kind of breakthrough idea after I've edited this and put it online and get frustrated. That happens with everyone I do. I have a thought afterwards, go, oh yeah, I should have thought of this. But anyway, in the original script, Sandman was going to meet the Vulture, who's going to be played by Ben Kingsley in a kind of precursor of the big guy, little guy duo in Wonder Man. They were going to meet in prison and plot to get Spider-Man for reasons I don't quite remember. I can see how an old man, as the Vulture is, and a working class stiff hitting back at society that discarded them would make sense. Be quite a powerful kind of villain set. But obviously that wasn't in this film. I can't quite, like I said, I can't really get a bead. Maybe it's appropriate, I can't get a grip on what Sandman is in this film. The giant Sandman towards the end is great. He's a bit inarticulate. Don't know why he can't speak. Maybe he's just too much bigness, brain stops working. But I like how he mutates into a kind of King Kong horror motif, the wounded monster just trying to exist in a world that wants to destroy him, which again, maybe speaks to working class experience a bit. Raimi's relationship with Cringe runs through the whole trilogy, and it's partly what I've been struggling through running through the whole trilogy. There's a strangely kind of key scene in this film when Ted Raimi, his brother, who plays J. Jonah Jameson's assistant at the Daily Bugle, he's laying out a truly horrifying marketing plan for the Daily Bugle. And the kind of bizarrely dated references and language are kind of everywhere in this Spider-Man. The whole trilogy, it's very kind of Gosh G. Willikers. The way the kind of Bully Maguire, emo Peter, black-suited version of Peter Parker, the kind of the dancing, the cafe jazz, even MJ's Broadway musical numbers, they feel not of the time. They feel a bit dated, strange kind of references. This guy's a young lad. Shouldn't he be out dancing at a club or something? I've said before how I feel like this should have been a Gen X Spider-Man in the way that the Amazing Spider-Man films are there for the millennials, and the MCU Spider-Man films are there for kind of Generation Z. I feel like there's no Generation X Spider-Man. Raimi doesn't really seem very interested in the noughties as a decade. He didn't really want Venom as a character. He didn't understand the Venom character. He felt he was kind of too pumped up and steroidal and 80s to really resonate with him. And maybe he's not really engaging with the naughties. That explains why the bad guy version of Peter dresses as a naughties emo kid with the black fringe and the dark clothes and the eyeliner. Maybe that's the spectre of the naughties, but I still want my Gen X Spidey. I want Gen X. Gen X gets nothing they want. Is that fair? Spider-Man 2, MJ's role in the importance of being earnest repeats the message of the film, that honesty, looking at oneself honestly as a whole being, is the key to moving on through life, mental health. But there's the closest equivalent to that kind of thing within a thing are the 3 songs that MJ performs at kind of key points. The first song at the beginning, when everything is supposed to be wonderful, is this showy number where she's dolled up and glittery and coming down a staircase, all very glamorous. And the song's about how the wonder of love is an illusion. And then it turns out that this kind of life that she has, or that Peter feels that they have, has been an illusion. The second song mirrors the emo Peter situation of him being kind of infected with the venom suit. It's a version of fever. It's that kind of sinful fever that mirrors what's going on with Peter. And tellingly, she doesn't get to sing it. He takes over. And then the third song, right at the end, is about the total disillusionment with love that she sings again in the jazz cafe. But she starts it, but she can't finish it because Peter walks in. The sight of Peter stops her from singing about this disillusionment. She's not done with love. She's not done with Peter. Maybe in Spider-Man 4, we'd have seen the direction that their relationship took next. Maybe one day we'll see something about it from the perspective of 2 people who've been married for decades, as was kind of hinted at in No Way Home. The story of them was what Peter was really into. The very first opening monologue of the film is just saying this is a story about a girl. I suppose this is the thing with Cringe and with Shadows, is that that's where the emotion really is. That's where the truth and the love sneak through. I like how the Bruce Campbell Mysterio character is helpful this time around. Maybe get some redemption.
I am French.
It would have been, I think the next film was again one that they thought Quentin Beck, Mysterio would Bruce Campbell would be playing that character, and this would all become clear. It's a long game that he's playing, but it's a shame he never saw it. But like, if it was this long game, how he was actively quite helpful in this one.
I like you.
Aunt May's advice is strong. She tells Peter exactly what he needs to do to move on with his life.
A man has to be understanding and put his wife before himself.
But her tea looks piss weak. There's a short performance by a British actor playing a British reporter in this film. It's terrible. Eye-gougingly terrible. Talking of bad acting, this includes one of Stan Lee's lovelier cameos.
You know, I guess one person can make a difference.
But because it's referring back to his own work and his own catchphrase, it's also a bit cringe. But, like I say, maybe the cringe is where the truth is.
Enough said.
One thing I don't like about the film, it's less bright than the earlier Spider-Man films. I kind of didn't like how they were too bright, but this is too murky, too much gone the other way. When he's fighting Goblin Jr. at the beginning, I can't see anything going on. It's a bit of a bugbear for me. When films are too dark and you can't really see the action. I think the Stacys suffer for being stuffed into the film by the studio. Raimi's lack of enthusiasm for the Stacys and for Venom seems fairly obvious, but he gives it an honest go. Bryce Dallas Howard is good as Gwen, I think, but Gwen's there to kind of big up Spider-Man. She and Eddie are there to act as a kind of a contrast to Peter and MJ, but also as a warning, I suppose. Also, she was originally meant to be the damsel in distress at the end, but it became MJ again, which I think Kirsten Dunst wasn't very happy about because she was kind of explicitly told you won't be hanging around screaming again this time, but she was. Maybe the best metaphor for Peter's struggles in the film is the jammed door of his bedsit, which only Ursula seems to be able to open, and she kind of got through to him in Spider-Man 2 as well. It's interesting that happens. But this door kind of represents Peter's difficulty with letting anybody in, literally. even Mary Jane, even Aunt May. And there's still an aspect of this great responsibility that means he feels he has to try and do everything himself. And that, again, as Aunt May advises,
You start by doing the hardest thing. You forgive yourself.
and if he'd done that, maybe the door could have been fixed earlier. So that's what I think about the film. I think there's a lot of good in it, but it's also quite a frustrating watch. What do you think? Was the theme of forgiveness a result of Raimi trying to forgive himself for making the film, struggling for all the demands of the film? Where did Gwen Stacy disappear to after Emo Peter takes her to a jazz club? I mean, to be fair, that would put me off. I wouldn't get a second date if you take me to a jazz club. Shoot me a web message with your opinions. Like, do all the stuff, subscribe, all of those things. Next up, Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer. The 90s sports punk shtick of the first film comes crashing into the sacred cow seriousness of the Silver Surfer. What is going to happen from this impact? It's also the last Marvel film before Iron Man launches the MCU into the world. So that was what we're doing next. But until then, be wary of any meteors shooting down from the heavens, bearing thing-like thrashing black slimes. And I'll catch up with you all again further on down that blessed stream.
How's the pie?
So good.